Christmas carols played as I cleaned up the broken glass. My cheek stung red from her perfect, unseen slap. I leaned into my father and whispered, "Stepmother beat me." He stared past the chandelier, his voice low. "Not today." Another crack sounded. Not glass this time, but her mask. Everyone thought this was a party. It was really a vivisection. My name is Tessa Rowan, and I am 29 years old. By profession, I am an electrical engineer. I design clean energy grids for Blue Arc Dynamics, a company in Gray Harbor, Washington, that believes the future can be logical, efficient, and bright. I spend my days solving complex problems with tangible, verifiable data. I believe in circuits that close, in power that flows without obstruction, and in the clean, beautiful truth of physics. My family home, Rowan House, does not operate on these principles. Rowan House operates on a different kind of power. It runs on inherited wealth, on unspoken alliances, on secrets buried so deep they have become the foundation. It is a system designed by my father, Andrew Rowan, the silent, watchful chairman of Rowan Holdings, a private equity firm that functions with the same quiet, impenetrable gravity as its owner. And tonight, the system's chief operator was my stepmother, Vivian Hale Rowan. The annual Rowan House Christmas party was her masterpiece, her grandest production of the year. It was a flawless display of charm and influence, a room filled with Gray Harbor's most powerful figures, all orbiting her as she glittered in the center. I had driven up the long, winding drive just after 7, the tires of my practical sedan crunching on the rain-slicked gravel. The house loomed, blazing with lights, a fortress of holiday cheer against the dark, wet Washington night. From the moment I stepped inside, the air was thick with the scent of pine, beeswax, and Vivian's perfume, a heady mix of tuberose and control. "Tessa, darling, you made it." Vivian had materialized from the crowd, a vision in emerald green silk that perfectly matched the towering Christmas tree. Her smile was a work of art, all white teeth and precision. She kissed the air beside my cheek. "We were so worried you'd be late. Your father is by the fire." "Hello, Vivian. The house looks beautiful," I said. It was the truth. It always was. "It's for the family," she'd replied, her eyes already scanning the room, managing every sightline, every conversation. My stepsister, Sloane Hale, was holding court by the grand staircase, phone held high, at 22. Sloane was a social media phenomenon, her entire life a curated, monetized performance. She was live-streaming the party to an audience of tens of thousands, her voice a high, bright trill. "And here's the famous Rowan tree. Isn't it just everything, guys? Mom has the most amazing taste." I nodded to my father, Andrew Rowan, who stood exactly where Vivian had said, a monolith in a bespoke suit. He held a crystal tumbler of what was probably whiskey, but I'd never seen him do more than hold it. He watched the room over the rim, his expression unreadable. He gave me a single, short nod. Acknowledgement. That was as much as I could expect. For an hour, I played my part. I was Tessa Rowan, the prodigal, slightly awkward engineer daughter. I discussed wind turbine efficiency with a city councilman and nodded politely as a banking executive explained his very simple, very wrong understanding of the power grid. I was a cog in Vivian's machine, and as long as I kept moving, I was functional. The breakdown occurred in the butler's pantry. Vivian had found me refilling my glass of seltzer. "Tessa, a word." Her smile didn't waver, but her hand was a steel grip on my elbow, guiding me from the bright noise of the party into the cool, shadowed utility space. The pantry was a buffer zone between the main kitchen, frantic with caterers, and the dining room. It was empty. She had timed this. She let go of my arm and smoothed the front of her silk dress. The smile was gone, replaced by a mask of cold appraisal. "What do you think you're doing?" she whispered. Her voice was as sharp and thin as a shard of glass. "I'm getting a drink, Vivian." "You are moping," she hissed. You've been here for an hour and you've spoken to 3 people. You look plain. That dress is a disgrace. Do you have any idea the work that goes into this night? Into maintaining this family's reputation? It's Christmas. Vivian, I'm not representing anyone. I'm just here. That's the problem. You are just here. You are a reflection on your father. You are a reflection on me. When you stand in the corner looking like a sullen little charity case, it makes us look bad. It makes him look weak. You will go back out there. You will smile. And you will make an effort. Or you will find the guest house a very cold place to spend the holiday. Do you understand me? I looked at her, at the perfect hair, the flawless makeup, the tremor of fury vibrating just beneath her skin. She was an artist of surfaces, and I was a problem of depth. I understand that you're stressed, Vivian, but you don't get to talk to me like that. It was the wrong thing to say. I knew it as the words left my mouth. I had challenged the system's operator. Her eyes, a very pale, cold blue, narrowed. She took one step closer, so she was invading my space, the scent of her perfume suddenly suffocating. You, she whispered, her voice barely a breath, are nothing in this house unless I say you are. You will learn respect. The slap was lightning fast, an open palm, a calculated strike that cracked against the bone of my cheek. It wasn't a brawl. It was an execution. It was quiet, precise, and timed perfectly with a crash of pans from the main kitchen. My ear rang. The skin of my face flashed hot, then cold. I stared at her, my vision momentarily blurring. She didn't flinch. She simply adjusted her cuff, her expression calm. Now, fix your face and go mingle. She turned and glided out of the pantry, re-entering the party like a queen returning to her court, her smile instantly, dazzlingly back in place. I stood there for 10, maybe 15 seconds. The engineer in my brain took over. Pushing past the shock, the sting, the humiliation, I ran a diagnostic. Input: 1 calculated act of physical violence. Operator: Vivian Hale Rowan. Motive: control. Elimination of a variable. Witnesses: 0. Immediate environment: secure. I touched my cheek. It was tender, already starting to swell, the skin hot and tight. I walked to the small sink, turned on the cold water, and pressed my wet fingers to the spot, breathing slowly, in, out, analyze. The system wasn't just flawed, it was actively malicious. The operator was unstable, and I was done being a passive variable. I walked back into the party. The music, a string quartet playing a muted "Oh Holy Night," swelled and crashed over me. Sloane was laughing. Her phone pointed at a group of her friends. Vivian was charming the mayor. And my father, Andrew Rowan, was still at the fireplace, a statue of a man, watching the flames. I walked straight to him. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I moved through the clusters of glittering guests, a straight line of force. He watched me approach, his eyes blank, incurious. I didn't stop until I was standing directly beside him, close enough to feel the heat from the fire on one side and the chill of his presence on the other. I leaned in, as if to share a holiday confidence, my lips brushing the air near his ear. "Stepmother beat me," I whispered. The words hung in the tiny, privileged space between us. I used the formal title, the one that defined the hierarchy, the one that made it clear. This was not a domestic squabble. This was a breach of protocol. Andrew Rowan did not move. He did not turn. He did not look at me. His gaze remained fixed on a point somewhere past the crystal chandelier, somewhere in a future only he was calculating. His voice was so low I almost didn't hear it. A flat, toneless murmur. "Not today." A different kind of crack, not glass, not skin, but the sound of something foundational shifting, a support beam giving way. Was it a dismissal? A denial? A promise? I didn't know, but it was an answer. He had received the data and filed it away. He would not act. In that exact second, a waiter, overloaded with a silver tray of empty champagne flutes, stumbled. The sound was spectacular, a crash, a shattering of glass, a collective gasp from the entire party. Everyone turned, every eye in the room, including my father's, swiveled toward the sound of the disruption. Vivian was there in an instant, all grace and concern, placing a hand on the young waiter's arm. "Oh, you poor thing. Are you all right? Don't worry. Accidents happen. Let's get this cleaned up." A perfect performance of magnanimity. No one was looking at me. No one saw the bright, angry flush blooming on my cheek. No one saw the ice in my eyes. My gaze lifted, past the crowd, past the tree. I scanned the ceiling. The ornamental plasterwork was studded with the discreet, paint-matched domes of the Rowan House home grid security system. I had helped design the network layout myself 5 years ago, during a brief period when my father thought my hobby in engineering might be useful. I knew where every camera was. And I knew that the tiny, pinprick indicator lights, which should have been glowing a steady green for standby or blinking a subtle red for recording, were dark, every single one, in the foyer, in the main hall, in the dining room. They were offline. They had been deliberately and skillfully disabled. This wasn't an impulse. This was premeditated. My hand went to the phone in my pocket. My fingers moved quickly, my gaze still sweeping the room. I sent a text message. It was a single, pre-programmed signal, a string of code that would look like nonsense to anyone else. It went to a man named Micah Doyle, a data journalist and the only person I trusted. Micah was currently parked in a very boring sedan half a mile down the road, outside the iron gates, monitoring a private, encrypted mesh network. My message meant, event trigger, we are live. I walked to the long, gilt-framed mirror by the entryway, pretending to adjust the strap of my uninspired dress. I looked at my reflection. The mark wasn't a bruise. Vivian was too smart for that. It was an angry mottled flush, the kind of thing that could be blamed on a glass of wine, or the heat from the fire, or a simple allergic reaction. It was plausible deniability, weaponized. It was enough to make someone doubt my story. It was enough to make her feel secure. But she didn't know about Micah. She didn't know about the data loggers I had installed in the home grid's main controller last month. She didn't know that I, too, could play a game of surfaces, but mine was backed by data, by logs, and by the immutable truth of a closed circuit. Vivian thought this was a personal dispute, a matter of family hierarchy. She was wrong. This was a systems test, and I, Tessa Rowan, was about to find out exactly what it took to trigger a catastrophic failure. The mark on my cheek was a data point. It was the culmination of a year-long test, a final, physical confirmation of a hypothesis I had been reluctantly building for 12 months. Vivian's attack in the pantry was not an isolated incident. It was the end of a campaign, a war of 1,000 quiet cuts, designed to methodically and accidentally erase me from my own family's infrastructure. It began subtly, as all systemic corruption does. A year ago, I was supposed to formally take my mother's seat on the board of the Rowan Foundation for Community Development. I am, by blood and by birthright, a Rowan. I am also an engineer. I understood the grants we specialized in: clean energy, urban infrastructure, STEM education. It made sense for me to be there. Vivian, who had assumed the chairwoman role after my mother's death, had agreed with a dazzling smile. "We will be so proud to have you, Tessa." Then the accident started. The first invitation to the Q1 board meeting never arrived. When I inquired, Vivian's assistant was horrified. "Oh my goodness, it must have gone to your spam filter. Vivian will be heartsick you missed it." For the Q2 meeting, I received the invitation, but the Zoom link was expired. "Tessa, darling, we switched platforms. Didn't you get the update?" Vivian's voice over the phone was slick with manufactured sympathy. For the Q3 meeting, I was present, but the critical financial reports had been forgotten from my packet. We must have miscounted the copies. By the time a set was found, the vote on the new budget allocation had already passed. It was death by 1,000 administrative errors. Each one was plausible. Together, they formed a pattern. I was being firewalled, excluded from the data stream. The digital exclusion bled into the physical. Rowan House is a marvel of modern engineering, a smart home running a proprietary system my father's company had invested in, the home grid. I had helped write some of the base code for its energy management modules during college. Yet, this past year, the house had begun to reject me. When I came for Thanksgiving, my biometric access to the East Wing, where my father's study and the Foundation's private server were located, suddenly failed. The system must be glitchy, Vivian had offered, her hand on the main override panel. Then there were the cameras. The home grid system logged everything. But I noticed that during my visits, the cameras in the main hall or the library would inexplic open-ended ones for scheduled maintenance. When I offered to look at the code, Vivian had laughed lightly. "Tessa, don't be silly. It's the holidays. We have professionals for that." The professionals, I noted, never seemed to fix the problem. I am not a detective. I am an engineer. I don't look for malice. I look for anomalies. And I found one. 4 months ago, I used my legacy admin access, one Vivian had forgotten to revoke, to run a simple diagnostic on the Foundation's expenditures. I wasn't looking for fraud. I was looking for inefficiencies. I found Halicon North, LLC. It was a shell. I knew it instantly. The address was a post office box in a different state. Its registration was anonymous, and the Rowan Foundation had been paying it, steadily, for 11 months. The payments were not small. We were talking installments of $50,000, sometimes $90,000. The memo line was always the same: community outreach and consulting. It was a black hole. Money went in, and nothing. No report, no press release, no outcome ever came out. I brought the data to Micah Doyle. Micah isn't just my partner. He is a journalist who understands that the truth is often hidden in spreadsheets. He looks at data the way a poet looks at text, searching for the story beneath. We were in his small, cluttered apartment, the glow of his monitor illuminating the anomaly. "She's washing," he said, not with surprise, but with confirmation. "Washing what?" I asked. "Money? It's already charity money." "Reputation," Micah said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Or she's using it as a private slush fund. Or something else." He looked at me. "You can't just accuse her. You have a log of a transaction. You don't have proof of intent. You can't just copy the files. Tessa, you have to prove they haven't been altered." He taught me the methodology. He taught me about data integrity. I learned to hash the files, creating a unique digital fingerprint for each document. I learned to run them through an independent, public blockchain to create an immutable timestamp. My evidence was no longer just a file on a drive. It was a verifiable fact, locked in digital stone, time-stamped and provable in a court of law. The next time I visited Rowan House, under the pretext of retrieving some of my mother's old books, I went to the basement. The cameras in the utility corridor were, as I expected, offline for service. I found the home grid's central controller. It was a beautiful piece of hardware, and my access code still worked. I didn't break anything. I didn't hack the system. I installed a passive diagnostic tool, a simple keylogger and packet sniffer, on the main admin port. If you are an engineer, this is not sabotage. This is called auditing. I left the house 2 hours later. The logger was silent, invisible, and uploading everything to a secure, encrypted server hosted by Micah. The data came in, and the pattern crystallized. It wasn't just incompetence, it was a conspiracy. The logger captured the commands. I saw Vivian's admin account, VHadmin, manually disabling the camera feeds in the East Wing. I saw the custom email filters she had built, routing any Foundation board emails containing my name or keywords like audit or Tessa directly to a trash folder. I saw the deletion of the home grid access logs. She was meticulous, she was thorough, and she was using the Foundation for something far worse than just excluding me. The payments to Halicon North, I discovered, were not random, they were timed. On May 3rd, the foundation paid Halicon North $80,000. On May 5th, Rowan Holdings announced a surprise acquisition of a small biotech firm, and its stock tripled. Someone at Halicon North knew about that acquisition before the public did. On August 10th, the foundation paid Halicon North $120,000. On August 11th, my father, Andrew Rowan, unexpectedly sold off a massive portfolio of commercial real estate in Seattle. Vivian wasn't just stealing, she was using the Rowan Foundation as a clearinghouse for insider trading, a way to pay off informants or move dark money under the guise of charity. She was using our family's name, my mother's name, to launder her corporate espionage. And then there was Sloane. Sloane's social media feed was a river of conspicuous consumption. She was the perfect, oblivious expenditure account. On October 2nd, my logger recorded a transfer of $50,000 from the foundation to Halicon North. On October 4th, Sloane posted a breathless unboxing video. It was a limited edition, exotic skin handbag, the kind of bag that costs $50,000, the kind of bag that has a 6-month wait list, unless you can pay a significant premium to expedite it. Vivian wasn't even hiding it. She was just billing her stepdaughter's lifestyle to the charity. The final piece of confirmation came 2 weeks ago. An email from a secure, anonymous Proton Mail account landed in my inbox at Blue Arc. It was short. Stop digging in adult business. Some things are better left buried. It was the threat that sealed her fate. It told me I was close. It told me she was nervous. But what of my father? This was the variable I couldn't solve. Andrew Rowan built an empire by seeing 3 moves ahead. He is a man of agonizing precision. How could he miss the diversion of millions? How could he not see the corruption in his own house? The question was sickening. Was he ignorant, or was he complicit? Was he a victim of her manipulation, or was he its silent beneficiary? I had no data on this. I only had his silence, his impenetrable calm, his refusal to see. I looked at him across the room, just after the slap, after I'd whispered my truth to him. Not today. His words echoed. Not no, not how dare you, but not today. A deferral, a calculation. I realized then what I had to do. I couldn't go to the board. Vivian controlled it. I couldn't go to the press. It was my word against hers. And she was the queen of Gray Harbor. I had to wait. I had to wait for the one night of the year when the system was under maximum load. The one night when every partner, every board member, every ally, and all of the city's power brokers were in one room, their eyes fixed on Vivian Hale Rowan. Christmas, her grandest performance, the moment of her maximum hubris. As any engineer knows, a system is most vulnerable when it is running at peak capacity. Hubris is a critical flaw, and the slap was not an act of power. It was a symptom of instability. It was the final error message before a total system crash. The cameras were off. Micah was waiting, and Vivian thought she had just silenced me. She didn't realize she had just armed the device. My response to my father's dismissal was not emotional. It was the execution of a precompiled plan. The slap was not an insult. It was the trigger. Vivian, in her arrogance, believes she controls the infrastructure of this house, that by disabling the home grid security system, she has created a blind spot. She is an operator. I am an architect. I anticipated this exact failure mode. My design for this night was not a single plan. It was a series of interconnected, redundant modules. Module A, Visual Data Acquisition. This module is currently sitting on the mantelpiece above the grand fireplace. It is a porcelain Christmas angel, seemingly an heirloom, wings spread in silent song. I bought it 3 months ago at an estate sale and spent 2 nights in my lab retrofitting it. Behind the angel's serene, painted eyes, a high-definition, low-light camera lens peers out through a nearly invisible imperfection in the glaze. This camera is not connected to the home grid. It is not on the Rowan Wi-Fi. It broadcasts on its own dedicated, encrypted frequency. By disabling the main system, Vivian didn't just blind herself. She eliminated the network chatter that might have detected my parallel feed. The angel has a perfect, unobstructed view of the main seating area, the fireplace, and the exact spot where my father stands. Module B, Audio Interception. Vivian is paranoid about visual surveillance but careless about audio. She assumes no one is listening. Barnaby, the family's aging, overfed golden retriever, is currently wearing a new collar. I gave it to him last week, claiming it was an early Christmas present. Disguised as a heavy, sterling silver name tag is a sophisticated, voice-activated directional microphone. It is keyed to the specific vocal frequencies of Vivian and my father. It is programmed to prioritize and isolate conversations held at high stress, low decibel levels. Whispers, hisses, arguments. For the past week, it has been capturing audio loops from the kitchen and my father's study, the two rooms where Vivian believes she is most secure. Module C, the Offsite Hub. The data from the angel and the dog's collar is useless if it stays in this house. It is not being recorded to a local device. It is being transmitted via a private, closed-loop mesh Wi-Fi network. This network uses 3 small, weatherproof nodes I placed on the grounds over the last 6 months, disguised as unlit landscape fixtures. The signal is powerful, encrypted, and terminates in Micah Doyle's car, which is currently parked on a service road half a mile from the main gate. Micah is the external server. His car is a mobile data center containing a rack-mounted mini-server, a bank of marine-grade batteries, and a Faraday cage to shield the equipment from any potential interference. He is not just watching. He is receiving, indexing, and time-stamping every packet of data in real time. Module D, the legal framework. Data is just noise without a legal interpreter. Naomi Keats, my attorney, is not here tonight as a friend. She is here as my acting counsel, mingling near the bar. Vivian probably thinks she's a partner from one of the accounting firms. In Naomi's elegant black handbag, there is a single, plain white envelope. This envelope does not contain a Christmas card. It contains the certified, notarized bank statements and wire transfer confirmations, legally subpoenaed from our bank last week, detailing every single transaction from the Rowan Foundation to Halcyon North, LLC. These are not photocopies. They are official bank records, bearing the state-authorized seal of authentication. Module E, Expert Verification. We need more than just the bank records. We need unimpeachable validation. We have an independent forensic auditor on standby. This man spent 20 years with the State Attorney General's office, specializing in nonprofit and charitable fraud. He is not at this party. He is at home, in front of his computer, waiting for a secure call from Naomi. He is our objective expert, the man who will, if necessary, explain to my father's partners and the hospital board chairman exactly what insider trading payments disguised as consulting fees looks like on a ledger. Module F, the audience. This is not a family argument. This is a corporate deposition, disguised as a party. I reviewed Vivian's guest list as soon as her assistant finalized it. I ensured the right people were here. The editor of the Gray Harbor Ledger, who is currently talking to my father, is here because Micah leaked a small, flattering, and entirely fabricated story about the Foundation's bold new community initiative, making him hungry for the real story. The chairman of the hospital board, our Foundation's single largest beneficiary, is here. My father's 2 most critical equity partners from Rowan Holdings are here, and Vivian, in her vanity, insisted on inviting Reverend Elliot Brandt, the city's self-appointed moral compass. This is not a crowd. This is a carefully selected jury. Module G, the timeline of disruption. I designed this evening as a 3-act play, timed to the party's natural rhythm. Act 1, the toast. This is scheduled for 9:30, just after the string quartet shifts from classical carols to the more upbeat holiday pop playlist. This will be the first data drop. Act 2, the gift exchange, scheduled for 10:15. This is when the hard evidence, the financial records, will be presented. Act 3, the fallout. This will be the migration to the study for a private conversation. This is the legal containment. We are currently at 9:05. The system is stable. The trigger has been activated. The sequence is running. Module H, the activation trigger. The entire architecture of this plan, the cameras, the audio, Micah, Naomi, was passive until an hour ago. It was a contingency plan. I needed a catalyst. I needed an undeniable, objective event that demonstrated Vivian's instability and malice. I hypothesized that if I refused to be emotionally manipulated, if I remained a calm, rational variable in her equation, she would escalate to a physical assertion of dominance. I did not know it would be a slap. I had prepared for a stumbled push, a glass of wine accidentally thrown. The slap, in its quiet brutality, was perfect. It was the enter key. It was the definitive proof that her control was illusory and her judgment compromised. Module 1. Data redundancy and failsafes. A single point of failure is an amateur's mistake. Micah's server in the car is the primary archive, but as he receives the data, his system is performing a constant hot sync, a compressed, heavily encrypted copy of every file, every audio log, every time-stamped packet is being simultaneously uploaded to a secure cloud server. This server is registered to a shell corporation I built for a senior year engineering project, an entity that has no legal or digital connection to me, Micah, or Blue Arc Dynamics. If this house and Micah's car were to vanish tonight, the truth is already archived, replicated, and safe. Module J. Safety protocols and ethical boundaries. There are children in this house. The catering staff's children are in the guest house. A few of the partners brought their teenagers. My design includes non-negotiable safety protocols. There will be no public confrontation while any minor is in the room. The primary reveals are sequenced to occur after 9:30, when the younger guests have been politely excused. All confrontations must, by design, move to the adult-only spaces of the main hall and the study. This brought me to my final design check. The core principle I repeated to myself as I walked out of the pantry, my cheek burning with the heat of her assault. This is an ethical commitment. This is not a personal vendetta. It is a structural correction. I will not use the data I have collected to humiliate Vivian physically. I will not comment on her appearance. I will not bring up her personal life, her insecurities, or her probable infidelities. I will not attack Sloane. Sloane is a symptom of the rot, not its cause. My target is the fraud. My target is the lie. I will present only the facts. I will present the flow of money. I will present the law. Vivian built her empire in this house on emotional manipulation, on whispers, on plausible deniability, and on unseen violence. I am dismantling her not with a bomb, but with a balance sheet. The design is sound. The components are in place. The system is live. I rejoined the party, my cheek a dull fire, my mind a cold engine. The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in social warfare. The phase of the operation I had labeled daytime masks. This was the performance. Vivian was in her element, holding court near the massive, glittering tree. She had her hand on the arm of Dr. Eris Thorne, the chairman of the Gray Harbor Hospital Board, and the man whose institution received the single largest grant from the Rowan Foundation. "And Andrew and I just feel," Vivian was saying, her voice a warm, generous honey. "That family is the cornerstone, not just our family, but the community as a family. That's why the Foundation's work is so personal to us." Dr. Thorne beamed. "Your family's generosity is legendary. Vivian, the new pediatric wing is a testament to that. We're all very eager to hear about the Foundation's plans for next year." "Oh, we have so much planned," Vivian said, glancing around, her eyes sweeping past me without a flicker of recognition. "Our first priority, as always, is full transparency. We want our partners to see every dollar at work." My phone vibrated in my pocket, a silent, single pulse. It was Micah's secure app. I shielded the screen with my hand. The message was simple. VH Admin, CMD, Disable Cam All Interior Feeds, TRG, Execute, Timestamp 21:09:03. 9:09, 6 minutes before she cornered me in the pantry, She had gone to the central home grid panel and preemptively blinded the house before she ever laid a hand on me. This was not a crime of passion. It was premeditated assault. My heart, which had been pounding, went still and cold. The angel on the mantel was now my only visual witness. I looked up. My father was watching me. He was standing with two of his partners, but his attention was on me. His expression was not one of concern, but of intense, dispassionate calculation. I was a variable he had not solved, a piece of data that did not fit his equation. He looked away the instant I met his gaze. Reverend Elliot Brandt, a man who had made a career of blessing the fortunes of the wealthy, approached me, his hand outstretched. "Tessa, what a joy to see you. Your family does such remarkable work, truly God's work, building up the community." I took his soft, dry hand. "It's certainly work, Reverend. I'm always fascinated by the numbers. The logistics of moving capital to where it's most needed. It's a complex system." "Ah," he said, his smile faltering, clearly not expecting an answer about logistics. "Yes, quite." "Excuse me, Reverend." A new arrival was at my elbow. Naomi Keats, my attorney, looking sharp and elegant in a midnight blue velvet dress. She smiled warmly, her eyes doing a rapid professional scan of the room. "Tessa, darling, I've been looking for you. Merry Christmas." She embraced me. It was not a social hug. It was a tactical maneuver. As her arms wrapped around me, her hand pressed a small, firm square into the palm of my hand. I recognized it instantly. A high-capacity, encrypted flash drive. She pulled back, her eyes telling me everything. "I'm so glad I caught you," she said, for all the world to hear. Her voice, for me alone, was a whisper against my ear. "The drive has the supplemental bank certs. The original envelope is secure. I'm here. We're go." She released me and turned to the Reverend. "Naomi Keats, such a pleasure. Isn't this house just a dream?" As she engaged him in conversation, I palmed the drive and slipped it into the small, hidden pocket on the inner seam of my dress. My gaze fell on Sloane. She was in the foyer, phone held high, spinning in a circle for her live stream. "You guys, the energy in here is just insane. Everyone who matters in Gray Harbor is here. Mom is just, like, the ultimate queen." She giggled and panned the camera, a wide, sweeping, careless motion. The phone's lens passed over the open door of my father's study, and for just a fraction of a second, before Sloane corrected her aim, her thousands of viewers got a clear shot of the small, private wall safe, the one my father used for his personal papers, standing ajar. The door was open. Sloane was oblivious. She was a liability, but she was also a conduit. I drifted toward her, my glass of seltzer in hand. She saw me approach and her smile tightened. We were not friends. We were artifacts of our parents' merger. "Hi, Tessa?" Her voice was flat, the bright live-stream persona gone. "Hi, Sloane. That's a beautiful bag," I said, nodding to the metallic purple handbag sitting on the hall table, the one from her unboxing video. She brightened, all her focus snapping to the object. "Oh my God, right? It's the new Artemis. You literally can't get it." "It's incredible," I said, my voice conversational, light. I saw a similar one in a budget projection for the foundation, under the Arts and Culture Acquisitions line. Funny how that works? Must be a very popular design. Sloane's face went from pale to white. The blood drained from her cheeks. "What? No. That's not. This was a PR gift." "I'm sure it was," I said, and smiled at her. "It's lovely. You have a good night." "Sloane?" I walked away, leaving her staring at her $50,000 piece of evidence. I felt a presence. My father had moved. He was no longer by the fire. He was by the archway to the dining room, holding his untouched whiskey, watching the interaction I just had with Sloane. His face was a mask of stone. He had seen it. He had seen me draw blood. I walked toward the butler's pantry, intending to get a fresh glass of water, to feel the cold glass in my hand, to have 3 seconds alone. I was almost there when Vivian's voice cut through the air behind me, low and venomous. "Tessa." I turned. She was standing 2 feet away. The mask of the perfect hostess was still in place, but the eyes were reptile cold. She was furious. She had seen me talk to Sloane. "You're making a scene," she whispered, stepping into my personal space. "I don't know what you're talking about. You are upsetting my daughter. You are being rude to the guests. And you will not," she hissed, "bring your sour, ungrateful attitude into my house on my night." She reached out, her fingers like claws, and grabbed the fabric of my dress at the collar, just below my shoulder. She tugged it, a sharp, violent gesture disguised as adjusting my outfit. "Straighten up," she commanded. This was it, the final error. I did not move. I did not flinch. I slowly, deliberately, brought my hand up and I closed my fingers around her wrist, trapping her hand against my collarbone. My grip was firm. I am an engineer. My hands are strong. "Let go of me, Vivian," I said. My voice was just as quiet as hers, but it held no heat. It was a flat, simple command. Her eyes widened. She had never been challenged. She tried to pull her hand away, but I held it fast. We were locked. A frozen tableau of false smiles and hidden strength. Across the room, I saw my father take one sharp step toward us. He had seen it. He had seen the entire exchange. His face tightened. He was coming. Then, just as quickly, he stopped. He stopped, his hand half raised, and his eyes went blank. He made a calculation. He chose not to engage. He turned, just slightly, back toward the fire. And in that moment, in that half-second of my father's indecision, Vivian knew she had his silent permission. She ripped her wrist from my grasp, her nails scraping my skin. "A word," she snarled, her face a mask of pure fury. "In the pantry, now!" That was the moment my father's "not today" was truly spoken, not with his voice, but with his inaction. The moment the activation trigger was pulled, the angel on the mantel, recording his non-choice, the dog at his feet, recording the silence. And I followed her, not as a victim, but as an auditor, stepping into the pantry to receive the final piece of data I needed. The slap was not the beginning, it was the receipt. I walked out of the pantry, the heat on my cheek a throbbing compass. The house, the party, had reassembled itself in the 30 seconds I was gone. Vivian was already by the fireplace, laughing at something the hospital chairman said, her hand on his arm, a flawless performance. She was an artist, but I was an engineer. I moved to my station. The music, the soft classical carols, was programmed to end at 9:30. It was 9:28. My father was still by the fire, his back to me, his conversation with his partners a low rumble. At 9:30 on the dot, the quartet playlist faded. A moment of pure silence hung in the air, thick and expectant. Then, the new playlist, Vivian's holiday pop mix, clicked on. A cheerful synthetic bell began to chime. This was the cue. Vivian stepped toward the center of the room, near the angel on the mantel. She gracefully tapped the side of her champagne flute. The sound was a bright, clear ping that cut through the chatter. If I could have everyone's attention, just for a moment? Her voice was warm, liquid gold. The crowd quieted, turning toward her. She was radiant. She was in complete control. "Andrew and I are just so thrilled to have you all here, our dearest friends, our partners, our family." Her eyes swept the room, and for a fraction of a second, they passed over me. There was no recognition. I was a ghost. "This time of year," she continued, "is for reflecting on what matters, and as we look at the work the Rowan Foundation has done, the word that comes to my heart is trust." The word hit the air and hung there, heavy and false. "It is trust," she said, raising her glass, "that allows us to do this work. The trust our community places in us, the trust our partners have in our vision, and the trust, the deep, abiding trust, we have in our family. She smiled. A perfect, calculated curve. To trust. To trust, the room murmured, raising their glasses. A toast to that, Vivian, I said. My voice was clear and carried. It did not sound like the voice of a victim. It sounded like the voice of an engineer. All heads turned to me. I was standing by the antique cabinet that housed the central sound system and the large 65-inch frame TV above the fire. Vivian's smile faltered. Just a hair. And as a toast, I said, I have a small contribution, a little look back at the Foundation's wonderful year, a celebration of all that trust. From my pocket, I pulled the small, encrypted flash drive Naomi had given me. It was disguised as an ornate, silver snowflake, an accessory that looked like a simple, festive charm. I plugged it into the system's media port. Vivian's system, I knew from my technical review, had a flaw. It was set to automatically play any media inserted into that port. It was a convenience feature. The Rembrandt on the television screen flickered, went black for a second, and then burst to life. The first image was beautiful. It was Vivian, in a hard hat, at the groundbreaking for the new community pediatric garden. She was holding a silver shovel, her face glowing with philanthropy. The guests sighed. Wonderful, someone murmured. But in the bottom right corner of the screen, I had forced the embedded metadata to display. It was not a setting Vivian would ever use. It was plain, white, digital text. IMG 7714 JPG. Date, created, 03/12/2024. Time, 11:02:45. The slide changed. Another brilliant photo. Vivian and my father handing a large ceremonial check to Dr. Eris Thorne. The check was for $500,000. The crowd applauded lightly. The metadata read, IMG 7789 JPG. Date created, 03/04/2024. Time, 15:21:09. Dr. Thorne, standing near the front, frowned. He looked at the screen, then at his own phone, checking a calendar. Vivian, he said, his voice hesitant. This is a wonderful photo, but I believe our check ceremony was in June. I remember, because it was the week of the gala. Before Vivian could answer, another guest, the editor of the Gray Harbor Ledger, spoke up. And that groundbreaking, I sent a photographer. That was in May, not March. I remember the date distinctly. It was the same day as the waterfront development vote. The room was quiet. Every eye went from the screen to Vivian. Vivian's laugh was a brittle, high-pitched shatter. Oh, goodness, how embarrassing, she trilled. My assistant must have used the raw camera files, not the finalized press ones. The dates are just when the photographer uploaded them. A silly, simple presentation glitch. A glitch, I repeated, my voice neutral. I looked at my father. He was not looking at Vivian. He was not looking at the guests. He was staring at the metadata on the screen, his brow furrowed in the first genuine, public frown I had seen him wear in a decade. He is a man who built an empire on data. He knows the difference between a date-created timestamp on a raw file and a glitch. He knew he was looking at a lie. The slideshow continued, picture after picture of charity events, each one timestamped in March, while the public record, the press releases, the thank you notes, all proved they had happened in May, June, and July. It doesn't matter, I said, and hit the pause button on my phone, which I had synced to the media player. The screen froze on a picture of Vivian cutting a ribbon. The work is what's important. I turned to the room, my hand, the one without a glass, resting on the mantel, not far from the porcelain angel. I still remember one of the first and most important lessons Vivian taught me about philanthropy. She said, Tessa, feelings are messy. Charity is about metrics. It is a clean ledger, input and output. We are here to ensure the maximum return on community investment. It was the most valuable business lesson I have ever received. The room was still. Complimenting her felt, somehow, like a knife. I raised my seltzer. To metrics. My phone vibrated. A secure ping from Micah. Ping. VH admin. Attempting manual override of media port. Blocked. Audio feed from B caller is high gain. VH to AR. Whisper. She is trying to ruin me. AR. Whisper. Be silent. I looked at Vivian. A tiny, perfect bead of sweat had formed at her hairline. She smiled, but it was a rictus. Naomi Keats, my lawyer, chose that moment to move. She glided toward my father, a picture of social grace. Andrew, you look like you need a fresh glass. My father hadn't touched his whiskey, but he nodded. Holding the glass out, Naomi took it. She walked to the bar, poured half an inch of whiskey, and walked back. As she handed it to him, her hand fumbled. A single, heavy stock, cream-colored business card fell from her grasp, landing face up on the polished surface of the side table next to him. "Oh, clumsy me," Naomi said, not picking it up. "My apologies, Andrew." She walked away. My father looked down. He did not touch the card, but from where I stood, I knew what it said. It was the name of our independent forensic auditor, and below it, the line, Specialist in Nonprofit Compliance and Fraud Investigation. Across the room, Sloane groaned, tapping her phone screen. "Ugh, the Wi-Fi in this house is garbage. My live stream just crashed. Again." I knew why. Micah's private mesh network was asserting bandwidth priority, jamming all other high-volume outbound traffic. Sloane's broadcast was not on the approved list. The silence in the room was now a ringing, high-frequency sound. The festive music was over. It was Marcus, one of my father's oldest partners, who finally broke it. He was a man who hated ambiguities. He cleared his throat. "Vivian, you and Tessa both mentioned metrics. I was reviewing the end-of-year summary this morning. Most of it was standard, but I was curious about one of the larger consulting expenses, a firm I've never heard of, Halcyon North, LLC. Can you elaborate on their role in the Foundation's work?" The air ionized. That was the name. Vivian's face froze. For 1/4 of a second, the mask did not just crack. It fell away. It was replaced by pure, cold panic. Then, the smile snapped back, brighter, tighter. "Oh, Marcus, must we really talk shop on Christmas Eve?" She laughed, waving a dismissive hand. "They are a wonderful new boutique firm, very efficient. We can run all the numbers for you after the holiday, I promise." She smiled at him, a gesture of absolute dismissal. The matter was closed. I took one step forward, away from the fireplace, into the center of the room. My voice was not loud, but it was perfectly clear. "After the holiday is still today." The room stopped. Every head turned to me. Vivian's smile was locked on her face, her eyes 2 chips of ice. "It is 9:45 on Christmas Eve," I said, my voice even. "We still have 2 hours and 15 minutes left of today. Surely that's enough time to answer Marcus's question about Halcyon North." I let the silence sit. I turned my head just slightly, letting the light from the fire fall fully on the angry red handprint blooming on my cheek. The silence was no longer social. It was surgical. Act 1 was complete. The silence in the room was a physical weight. My question, "After the holiday is still today," hung in the air, an unexploded ordnance. Vivian's face was a mask of pure, white rage, her eyes glittering. She was trapped. Marcus's question about Halcyon North, combined with my timeline, had cornered her. She looked for an escape, and in a room full of social rituals, she found one. Her laugh was a brittle, shattering sound, completely false. "Oh, Tessa, you and your deadlines." She turned to the room, a grand, sweeping gesture of a hostess redirecting a boring conversation. "You are just like your father, all work. But no, not tonight. We are not talking shop." She clapped her hands, a sharp, commanding sound. "It is time for the gifts." This was her pivot, her attempt to reclaim the narrative, to bury the data under a mountain of wrapping paper and feigned joy. A brilliant social maneuver. But it was also Act 2. and I had come prepared. "Sloane, darling, be a dear," Vivian commanded. "Start bringing the presents from the tree. Let's start with, Marcus, this large one is for you." For 10 minutes, the party attempted to right itself. There was a performance of delight. "Oh, it's perfect." "You shouldn't have." "How did you know?" It was a desperate, loud, and hollow sound. I stood by the fireplace, waiting. My father had not moved. He still held his fresh glass of whiskey, his eyes fixed on the blank, black screen of the television, as if he could still see the glitchy metadata. "And this one," Sloane announced, her voice still a bit shaky from our earlier encounter, "is for Vivian, from Tessa." A hush fell. Sloane, oblivious to the new dynamic, held out a beautifully wrapped, heavy rectangular box. "How wonderful," Vivian said, her voice dripping with saccharin. She took the box from Sloane and began to unwrap it, her movements precise, her nails not daring to tear the expensive paper. She pulled it from the box. It was a heavy sterling silver frame, ornate and expensive. It was designed for 2 5x7 photographs. The name I had engraved on the silver plaque at the bottom read, "Rowan Family, Past and Present." On the past side, I had placed a photo of my father and my biological mother, taken at this very party, 20 years ago. On the present side, a stunning, professionally shot photo of my father and Vivian at last year's hospital gala. Vivian's breath caught. It was a tactical stroke, a gift so deeply, uncomfortably sentimental, so full of family that she had to love it. To reject it would be a confession. "Tessa," she breathed, the first genuine note of surprise in her voice I'd heard all night. She was stunned. It's beautiful." "I thought it represented trust," I said, echoing her word from the toast. "The foundation of the family. I thought it should go right on the mantel. Here." I took it from her, our fingers brushing. I walked to the mantelpiece, right below the television. I placed the heavy frame between the porcelain angel and a cluster of silver-dipped pine cones. My father, who had been a statue of stone, moved. He stepped forward, drawn by the image of his first wife. He reached out, not for me, not for Vivian, but for the frame. "This photo," he murmured, his voice rough. He touched the glass on my mother's side. Then, his hand drifted. He ran his fingers along the ornate silver edge, an absent-minded, tactile gesture. His thumb grazed the present side of the frame, right over the silver plaque. It was exactly the gesture I had modeled in my lab. Behind the present photo, beneath the velvet backing, was not cardboard. It was a flat, wafer-thin near-field communication tag, its antenna coiled like a snake. When his thumb touched the plaque, it completed the circuit. The tag was programmed with a single instruction: to pair with the television's active but dormant media input and execute a single, secure web link. The 65-inch television screen above the fire flickered. It did not show a picture. It showed a spreadsheet. The room gasped. Vivian, who had been admiring her own photo, looked up. Her face, her real face, was finally revealed. It was a rictus of dawning, absolute horror. The screen was a clean, cold, black and white ledger. The title at the top was simple: Rowan Foundation, Expenditures, Classified. Below it, a filtered list of transactions. Payee, Halcyon North, LLC, ACCT 75B1192. Date, May 3rd. Amount, 80,000 USD. Memo, Community Consulting. Date, Aug. 10th amount, 120,000 USD. Memo, Outreach Services. Date, OC second amount, 50,000 USD. Memo, Arts Grant, Urgent. "What is this?" Marcus, my father's partner, said, stepping forward. As he spoke, the screen split, the ledger remained, but a new window opened beside it. It was a public-facing website, the Gray Harbor County Property Registry, and on the screen, a deed. Property, 412, Salt Point Cottage. Owner, Halcyon North, LLC. Date of sale, August 11th. Sale price, $118,500 USD. $118,500. The day after Vivian's outreach services payment of $120,000. You! Vivian shrieked. She pointed a trembling finger at me. Her voice was no longer honey. It was acid. You did this. This is fake. It's all fake. You fabricated this. This filth. What you are looking at, Vivian, is not filth. It is a direct read-only data pull from the Foundation's partner bank. Naomi Keats's voice cut through the air, as sharp and clean as a surgeon's scalpel. She had moved to the center of the room. She was no longer a guest. She was counsel. Those are not fabricated screenshots, Naomi continued, her voice projecting to every corner of the room, for every partner, for the editor, for the hospital chairman. Each transaction you see on that screen is accompanied by a blockchain-verified, immutable timestamp. It was digitally signed by the bank's head of operations at 9 a.m. this morning. They are certified, they are legally admissible, and they are, I'm afraid, 100% irrefutable. Vivian looked from Naomi to me, to my father. She was panting. You bitch! You conniving little bitch! Naomi's phone lit up in her hand, a FaceTime call. She answered it and angled the screen so the room could see the face of the man on the other end. He was older, in a sharp suit, with tired, intelligent eyes. Naomi, his voice said, crisp and clear through the phone's speaker. Just checking in, as requested. I'm at the main gate. I can be at the front door in 90 seconds if Mr. Rowan or his partners require an independent verification of these accounting discrepancies. Thank you. Mr. Harris, Naomi said. Please wait there for a moment. She hung up. She looked at my father. That was Mr. Harris, our forensic auditor. The trap was sprung. The data was live. The expert was at the gate. Sloane, who had been frozen, watching the screen, finally broke. She grabbed Vivian's arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the green silk. Mom, she whispered, her voice a desperate, terrified plea. Mom, stop. Just stop it. Please, just stop. It was the first crack in Vivian's empire. Her own daughter, her own creation, was telling her to surrender. Vivian, Dr. Eris Thorne, the hospital chairman, stepped forward. His face was pale. That cottage, Halcyon North, that's the name Marcus asked about. You bought a house? He looked at the ledger, his eyes scanning the lines. October 2nd, Arts Grant, $50,000. My God. Vivian, is that the money you told me was reallocated from our pediatric therapy wing? He took a step back, his face a mask of disgust. Were you using foundation money, our money, for improper tax deductions? Is that what this is? Vivian had no answer. She was surrounded. My phone vibrated. One long, steady pulse. I glanced at the screen. A new message from Micah. Ping. Got her. She's smarter than I thought. VH admin initiated level 3 secure wipe on all home grid camera logs for the last hour. She's trying to erase the pantry. But my logger already scraped the original, unaltered log file. I have a screenshot of the original file showing all cams active, and I have a 1-minute video of her manually disabling the system from the main panel at 21:09. She's actively destroying evidence of the assault. Right now, as we speak. She knows. The screenshot is saved. The video is saved. We have it all. I looked up from my phone. Vivian was still panting, her eyes wild, looking for a way out. I looked at my father. He was staring at the screen, at the numbers, at the name of the cottage. His face was unreadable. I took a single step toward him. I touched my cheek, the skin still hot and tight. It's a common pattern, isn't it? I said, my voice quiet, but it carried in the dead silent room. First, Physical violence to silence a witness. I looked at Vivian. Then, a desperate digital cover-up to erase the evidence. It's the classic signature of a power that is terrified of the truth. My father's head turned. He looked at me. He looked at the red handprint on my face. He looked at his wife. He looked at the glass in his hand. He squeezed. There was no sound. At first, just a tightening of his knuckles, and then a low, sickening, grinding crack. The crystal, unable to withstand the pressure, shattered in his grip. Whiskey and blood dripped onto the priceless Persian rug. He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, bleeding, as the ledger glowed on the screen above him. Act 2 was over. The sound of the breaking glass was the only sound in the room. My father, Andrew Rowan, did not look at the blood welling in his palm. He did not look at the shards of crystal embedded in his hand, or the dark stain of whiskey spreading on the rug. He stared, unblinking, at the black television screen, at the afterimage of the ledger. His voice, when it came, was not a shout. It was a low structural rumble, the sound of a foundation shifting. Into the study, now. He turned and began to walk. He did not look to see who was following. The party, the guests, the entire social construct shattered like his glass. People scrambled to get out of his way. It was no longer a party. It was a sentencing. We followed him in a silent, grim procession. Me, a stone-faced Naomi Keats, my father's partners, Marcus and Dr. Thorne, their faces pale with anger, the editor of the Gray Harbor Ledger and Reverend Brandt, witnesses who understood they were now trapped in the story. And behind us, like a prisoner being led to the dock, came Vivian. My father pushed the study door open. It swung wide, revealing the dark, wood-paneled room. The only light came from the small, interior lamp of the wall safe. The one Sloane's live stream had revealed was still standing ajar. "Vivian," my father said, his voice flat. He did not turn on the main lights. "The keys to the server cabinet, the ones you use for the home grid administrator panel." Vivian, on pure, panicked autopilot, stumbled forward. "Andrew, this is madness. She has poisoned you. This is all a lie. A performance." "The keys, Vivian." They are in the safe," she stammered, gesturing to the open door. I must have been retrieving something. I left it open." "That will not be necessary," Naomi Keats said, her voice cutting through the dim, charged air. She stepped past my father, into the room. "And I must advise everyone that this room, and its contents, are now a protected legal site." Vivian spun. "You have no authority here. This is my house. Get out." "Actually," Naomi said, pulling her phone from her small, elegant black clutch. "I do." She angled the bright screen toward my father. "As of 4:15 this afternoon, I filed an ex parte motion with the state court for a temporary civil preservation order, citing probable cause of financial malfeasance and the active destruction of evidence. Judge Miller signed it at 4:30. Everything in this room, Vivian, including the contents of that safe, is now legally sealed. If you touch anything, you will be in contempt of court." Naomi, who had apparently anticipated this, produced a pair of thin latex gloves from her clutch. She slid them on with a soft, clinical snap. "You can't do this!" Vivian shrieked. "I can," Naomi said, "and I am." She reached into the open safe. She did not touch the thick stacks of cash. She did not touch the velvet jewelry boxes. She retrieved, very precisely, 3 items. The first was a small, black, portable hard drive. A white label was stuck to the top, written in Vivian's perfect looping script. Foundation, drafts. The second was a thick, blue, leather-bound folder. The third was a small, black, leather-bound notebook. Naomi placed the blue folder on the center of my father's massive oak desk. "Andrew," she said, her voice gentle, "I believe this belongs to you." My father stepped forward and opened the folder. His face, already ashen, lost all remaining color. He looked up at Vivian, his eyes filled with a dawning, sick understanding. "This," he whispered, "is our prenuptial agreement." "Andrew, don't!" Vivian lunged forward, her hand outstretched. "You cannot look at that. It's private. It's between us." "It is now," Naomi said, placing a gloved hand on the document. A central piece of evidence. She turned a page, her finger landing on a specific paragraph. "Andrew, please read Article 7, Section B." My father's eyes scanned the page. He read the words aloud, his voice a hoarse, dead monotone. "In the event of a finding of gross financial negligence, fraud, or willful misconduct, all claims to marital assets outlined in Article 4 shall be rendered null and void. All assets, real and personal, revert to the Rowan Family Trust." He looked up from the paper, his eyes finding Vivian's. "You knew," he said. It was not a question. "You knew this was here. You were trying to hide it." "There is more," Naomi said, picking up the small, black notebook. She opened it. It was a contact list, but it was written in code. "HN," Naomi said, tapping a page. "Halcyon North," and next to it, a private, unlisted cellular number. "We ran that number this afternoon. It belongs to a senior vice president at North Stream Equity." Marcus, my father's partner, let out a low curse. "North Stream? That's the firm we outbid for the Biogentech acquisition in May. The one we barely won." "You were paying for insider information," my father said to Vivian. His voice was hollow. "You were using my mother's foundation to commit corporate espionage." "And finally," I said, my voice cutting into the silence. I pointed to the small black hard drive on the desk. "That, Naomi, we need the forensic doc." "I have it," a voice said from the doorway. Micah Doyle stood there. He was no longer the man in the car. He was dressed in a dark suit, his face grim, carrying a heavy, hard-sided silver briefcase. Vivian stared at him. "Who the hell are you? Call security." "He is my data specialist," Naomi said, her authority absolute. "He is here, under the authority of the court order, to ensure that drive is copied, bit for bit, without contamination." Micah stepped to the desk, opened his case, and revealed a complex array of cables and hardware, a forensic workstation. He took the Foundation Drafts drive and clicked it into a device. "This is a hardware write blocker," Micah explained, his voice calm and academic, speaking directly to my father and his partners. "It prevents the source drive from being altered in any way. I am making a bitstream copy, a perfect, legally verifiable clone. Nothing on the original drive will be touched." He initiated the transfer. A progress bar glowed on his laptop screen. "While we wait for the clone," Micah said, "I was able to recover this from the server logs before Mrs. Rowan initiated the secure wipe. It's an email draft. It was saved to this very drive 2 weeks ago." He turned his laptop so my father could read the screen. "To Vivian Rowan, lawyer at private, from V. Admin, subject, Tessa problem. We need to accelerate the plan. She is digging. Cleanse Tessa's influence from the Foundation entirely. Find a way. Use the bylaws. She is too close." My father read the words. He closed his eyes. The data transfer hit 100%. "Done," Micah said. He unclicked the source drive, placing it in a sealed, labeled evidence bag. He held up the new, cloned drive. "The copy is secure." Vivian, who had been standing, frozen, vibrating with a silent, murderous rage, finally snapped. She screamed. It was not a word. It was a raw animal sound of pure, unadulterated fury. She launched herself across the desk, her nails like claws, aimed not at me, not at my father, but at the cloned hard drive in Micah's hand. "Give me that." But Andrew moved. He was faster than I had ever seen him move. He didn't grab her. He didn't touch her. He simply slammed his body between Vivian and Micah, a solid, immovable wall. His uninjured hand, the one not bleeding, shot out and caught her wrists in midair. No. The word was a slammed door, a final judgment. Vivian froze, her arms pinned in his grip. She looked into his face, her own a mask of disbelief. He looked down into her eyes. Not today. The words, his promise from the hallway, were fulfilled. It was not a dismissal, it was a sentence. He was no longer covering up. He was protecting the evidence. A terrible, broken sound, a high-pitched wail, came from the hallway. Sloane was standing in the study doorway. Her phone dropped on the floor, her face a ruin of streaked makeup and tears. "It was me," she sobbed, her voice cracking. "The bag. The $50,000 bag." Everyone turned. "It wasn't a PR gift," she cried, collapsing against the doorframe. "Mom told me to call it that. She said the foundation had an arts and culture fund for influencers, and that the money was an exchange, that I just had to post 3 times about the hospital gala, and the fund would cover the cost. I didn't know. I didn't know it was stealing. I didn't know it was stealing from sick kids." Her confession, a raw, piercing wail, echoed out into the main hall. The spell was broken. In the hall, the party guests, who had been clustered near the door, listening in horrified, absolute silence, began to murmur. The sound was a low, rising tide of judgment. The great crystal chandelier above them, perhaps from the vibration of the crowd, chimed softly, a single, dissonant note. The masks were gone. The performance was over. There was only the truth, raw and bleeding on the Persian rug. Naomi Keats already had her phone to her ear. "Mr. Harris," she said, her voice crisp and final. "Bring in the civil patrol car. We are securing the assets." My father's hand, the one holding her wrists, was steady. The other, the one he had cut, dripped a slow, steady rhythm of blood onto the oak desk. Vivian stared at his face, at the dead-cold calm, and she finally understood. He was not her protector. He was her jailer. He released her, not gently. He simply let go, and she stumbled back, catching herself on the edge of the desk. The study fell into a vacuum. Vivian, a creature of noise and emotional warfare, had one weapon left. She straightened, smoothed her silk dress, and found me in the crowded room, the victim's mask locked into place. "You," she hissed. "This has always been you. Jealous, small." I didn't answer the feeling. I answered the fact. I turned my cheek so they could see the livid mark. At 9:15 p.m., in the butler's pantry, you struck me. Module A, the porcelain angel, recorded it and transmitted off-site. Color drained from her face. She pivoted. "He faked it. The blogger? He's a hacker." Micah, still packing his doc, didn't look up. The records were lawfully subpoenaed and independently verified. The audit trail is intact. Vivian lunged for the final refuge. "I didn't know. The accountants—" Naomi stepped forward with a thin red folder and laid out 5 blue forms. 5 manual wire transfers to Halcyon North, each over $50,000, each requiring your personal signature. She tapped the pages. There, and there, and there. 5 wet ink signatures. Vivian. Vivian stared at the looping signature that condemned her. The room was a tomb. My father finally spoke, his voice raw. "Tessa, the total." $3,245,000, I said. Over 11 months, itemized against insider trades and personal purchases. Dr. Thorne's hand went to his mouth. The pediatric wing was $2 million. Vivian had nothing left. No logic, no data, no defense, only the bond she had forged. She reached for my father. "Andrew, look at me. Not at them. Not at numbers. Our life, our home. Are you really going to believe her over me?" He looked at her face, then at mine, then at the blood on his hand and on the desk. "I believe the data," he said. Flat, honest. It was done. From the doorway, Sloane rose, wrecked and shaking. "I'm tired of acting. Mom," she said, and walked into the dark hall, her first step free. The spell broke, a chair scraped, a glass clattered. "We should go," someone whispered. "Marcus," Dr. Thorne said, hard. "We are not leaving. We are witnesses." Vivian stood very still. The tears were gone. The performance was over. The hostess, the philanthropist, the victim, all melted away. What remained was cold, flat, pure, distilled, unadulterated steel. She looked at my father, at Naomi, at me. "You will all regret this," she said. Not a threat, but a verdict. The great oak door creaked open. A wet gust of winter blew the chandelier into a thin chime. 2 men and a woman stood in the doorway. Dark jackets, a discreet state logo on the shoulder. "Mr. Andrew Rowan?" the woman asked, clear and professional. Naomi stepped from the study. "Thank you for coming. Inspector, this is Mr. Rowan, and this is Vivian Hale Rowan. The documents you requested are here, present and accounted for." The state inspector, a woman with a face that had seen every possible lie, stepped forward into the study. Her 2 colleagues fanned out behind her, positioning themselves by the door and the desk. They were not guests. They were the system, arriving to replace the one that had just failed. "Inspector Julia Valdez, State Office of Charitable Oversight," she said, her voice a flat, unimpeachable authority. She looked only at my father. "Mr. Rowan, we received a civil complaint this afternoon, supplemented by a request from your legal counsel, Ms. Keats. We also received a separate, anonymous tip regarding the Halcyon North LLC. My anonymous tip, from 2 weeks ago, finally landing. We are here to execute a civil order to preserve all financial documents, servers, and related assets of the Rowan Foundation, pending a full state audit." Vivian, who had been a statue of steel, found her voice. It was a low, dangerous growl. "This is a private residence. You have no right. This is a family matter. Andrew, tell them." My father, who had been staring at his bleeding hand, finally moved. He walked past me, past Vivian, to the bar cart in the corner of the study. With his uninjured hand, he picked up a linen napkin. He wrapped it, with slow, agonizing precision, around his bleeding palm. The white linen turned dark red, a stark, terrible flag of truce. He turned, not to Vivian, not to the inspector, but to the room, to his partners, to the hospital chairman, to the editor, and to me. "Inspector," he said, his voice quiet, but it was the loudest sound I had ever heard him make. "You are welcome here. Your audit will have our full cooperation." "Andrew, no!" Vivian shrieked. "Be silent," he commanded. It was not a whisper this time. It was an order. He looked at Vivian, and for the first time, he saw her. He saw the liability. He saw the fraud. He saw the end. "Viv." He used the name he called her in private, and it was a final, terrible intimacy. Pursuant to Article 9, Section 4 of the Rowan Foundation Bylaws, the Moral and Ethical Conduct Clause, I, as acting chairman of the board, am informing you that you are suspended, indefinitely and with immediate effect, from all directorial duties, all financial oversight, and all representative roles pertaining to the foundation. "You can't," she screamed. "The bylaws require a full board vote." "They require a vote for a removal," Naomi Keats interjected, her voice sharp as glass. "But the chairman has independent authority to issue an emergency suspension in the event of gross misconduct or active criminal investigation, and I believe a $3 million fraud and the presence of the State Oversight Office qualifies." My father nodded, a single, sharp dip of his head. "She is correct." He then looked at me. "And pursuant to the same bylaws, in a crisis, the chairman may appoint an emergency interim supervisor to liaise with the auditors and ensure the continuation of core duties. Inspector, as of this moment, my daughter, Tessa Rowan, will be your sole point of contact. She will have full administrative access. She will work with Mr. Harris, the independent auditor." The power in the room, a physical, tangible thing, drained from one woman and flowed, like a current, to another. I could feel the weight of it. Vivian let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You would replace me with her? The girl who built this entire lie? Andrew, you are a fool. She has tricked you. He is not a fool, Vivian, I said, my voice quiet. He is a pragmatist, and he is late. My father looked down, the blood from his hand seeping through the napkin. She is right. I am late. He looked up, past Vivian, at Naomi. Ms. Keats, the other matter. Naomi nodded. Yes, Andrew. She reached into her briefcase, the one she had brought in from the hall, and pulled out a second document. It was not the prenup. It was new. Vivian, my father said, his voice heavy, you are correct that I have been a fool. I have been blind, but not completely blind. He looked at his partners. Marcus, 6 months ago, I had a sense, an anomaly I could not source, a discrepancy in the numbers that did not feel right. I asked our private counsel to draft a failsafe, a supplement to my will, a codicil. Naomi Keats held up the document. This codicil, my father continued, his voice a dead monotone, was executed and filed with the state 6 months ago. It states that I had suspicions of financial malfeasance within my own household. It states that if any such malfeasance were to be proven in a civil or criminal court, any and all marital assets, claims, or trusts outlined in our original prenuptial agreement, specifically Article 4, would be immediately nullified. Vivian's face had gone beyond white. It was the color of ash. And my father said, delivering the final, killing blow. It states that all said assets would be immediately and irrevocably transferred into a new, charitable trust, a trust to be used exclusively to fund the community projects, like the pediatric wing, that had been overlooked. He paused. A trust, for the record, to be named the Elizabeth Rowan Community Trust, my first wife's name. Vivian stared at him, her mouth open, the realization a slow, agonizing dawn. A trust, my father finished, his eyes finding mine, to be co-managed by two, and only two people, myself and my daughter, Tessa Rowan. Conspiracy! Vivian finally screamed, a raw, piercing sound of pure animal terror. This was a plot. You did this. You planned this. You set me up. This was a coup. It was a contingency, my father said, his voice flat. It is, Inspector Valdez said, stepping forward, her patience at an end. She held up her own papers. A court order, and my authority is not contingent. It is effective immediately. She turned to her team. We will begin with the office. All documents, all computers, Ms. Keats, your Mr. Doyle, they will supervise the digital transfer. Mr. Rowan, we will require your statement. Mrs. Hale Rowan, you will wait in the main hall. My father looked at me. The room was a whirlwind of new, official movement. The state was in control. Tessa, he said, his voice low, just for me. I have seen enough. It was a confession, an apology, an abdication. But I felt no victory. I felt no joy. I felt the crushing, immediate weight of $3,245,000. I saw the faces of the children in the therapy wing that had been defunded. I did not return my father's gaze. I turned to Dr. Thorne, who was standing, stunned, by the door. Dr. Thorne, I said, it was my first act as supervisor. My first directive is one of absolute transparency. I want a full audit, by morning, of every project Vivian cut in the last 11 months, and I want the Elizabeth Rowan Trust's first act to be the immediate, full restoration of the pediatric therapy wing's budget. Tonight. Yes, he said, his voice thick with relief. Yes, of course, Tessa. I can post it. We all turned. Sloane was standing in the doorway, her face raw, but her eyes were clear for the first time. On my channel, I can make a statement, Right now, I can tell them. I can tell them what Mom did. I can apologize. I can tell them we're giving the money back." Micah, who had been standing silently by, nodded. "It's the right move. I'm already drafting a press release for the Ledger." He looked at the editor, who was scribbling in a notebook. "No family details, no assault, just the facts, the name, Halcyon North, the amount, 3.2 million, the insider trading, and the corrective actions, effective immediately." "Good," I said. "No," Naomi said, her voice sharp, cutting through our plans. "No one is drafting anything. No one is posting anything." She looked at all of us, at me, at Micah, at Sloane. "Listen to me, all of you," she said, her voice the only law in the room. "The time for vigilante justice is over. The time for data dumps is over. From this moment, the law is in control. The State Attorney General's office will handle all public statements. Every one of you, in this room, is now a material witness in a state-level investigation. You will not speak. You will not post. You will not apologize. You will give your statements to the inspector, and you will go home." She looked at my father. "Andrew, you need to call your criminal lawyer, not me." She then turned, and her gaze, cold and final, fell on Vivian, who was standing, defeated, by the bloody desk. "Mrs. Hale Rowan," Naomi said, "I am advising you, as an officer of the court, to secure your own counsel, and I am advising you, as a human being, to vacate the premises." "Vacate?" Vivian whispered, the word hollow. My father spoke, his back to her. "Get out." Vivian stood there for a long moment. The steel returned to her spine. She was a queen, even in exile. She pulled the shreds of her dignity around her. She turned, her head high, and began to walk. She walked out of the study, through the gawking, silent remnants of her party, and to the front door. She paused, her hand on the great brass handle. She looked back, her eyes finding me, one last time, across the long, ruined hall. "No one," she said, her voice a carrying, venomous whisper, "will ever believe a dry, cold-hearted engineer like you. They will say you did it for jealousy. They will say you are a bitter, unlovable bitch, and they will be right." She opened the door and walked out into the cold, wet, unforgiving night. As the door clicked shut, sealing the house, the great-grandfather clock in the hall began to chime, a deep, resonant bell. 1, 2, I counted them. 11, 12. The last chime faded into the silent, wreckage-strewn hall. Christmas was over. It was the 26th of December. The new era had begun. The house was silent by 3 a.m. The guests, now witnesses, had given their statements and vanished into the wet, pre-dawn darkness. The state inspectors had sealed the study, leaving with the hard drives, the ledgers, and the first layer of my father's life. My father had been taken, not by police, but by his new criminal lawyer, to an off-site location to begin preparing his defense. I did not sleep. I sat in the vast, cold kitchen, drinking black coffee, as Micah and Naomi worked at the massive dining table. They were not celebrating. They were preparing for the next phase. At 9 a.m., the storm broke. The press conference was not held at Rowan House, with its new, invisible police tape and air of ruin. It was held at the Gray Harbor Civic Hall, a neutral, public space. My father stood at the podium. He had not slept. His face was a gray mask of exhaustion, his hand professionally bandaged. He looked, for the first time in his life, like a man who had lost. I stood beside him, not as his daughter, but as the interim supervisor of the foundation. He read from a prepared statement. His voice was a flat monotone. "Good morning. I am Andrew Rowan. I am here today to announce that I am stepping down, effective immediately, as chairman of the Rowan Foundation. I have failed in my duty of oversight. My trust was misplaced, and my inattention has led to a catastrophic failure of governance." He acknowledged the state's civil investigation. He pledged his full personal cooperation. He admitted to a profound and disqualifying lack of judgment. Then, it was my turn. I stepped up, the mark on my cheek now a dull purple-yellow bruise, a fact I refused to cover with makeup. I am Tessa Rowan, acting supervisor of the foundation, I said. My voice, an engineer's voice, was steady. As of this morning, we have authorized a full, independent audit of all foundation finances from the past 24 months. Our first act, as of midnight last night, was the full and immediate restoration of all funds cut from our community partners, including the $750,000 grant for the Gray Harbor Pediatric Therapy Wing. I did not speak of the assault. I did not speak of the drama. I spoke of the numbers. The total amount of misappropriated funds has been identified as $3,245,000. Our council has already begun the civil process to freeze and reclaim all assets purchased with these funds, including the property at Salt Point Cottage. We will make our partners, and our community, whole. Inspector Valdez spoke next, confirming the state's formal, open-ended investigation into Vivian Hale Rowan and, as a person of interest, Andrew Rowan. And then, as a final, desperate act, Vivian appeared. She arrived mid-conference, a new, high-priced, and aggressive lawyer at her side. She was dressed in a simple, dark, victim's outfit. Her lawyer began to speak immediately, his voice a booming, practiced outrage. "This is a travesty," he shouted, pushing his way to a microphone. "This is a pre-planned, malicious, corporate and familial coup. My client, Vivian Hale Rowan, is the victim of a conspiracy." He was good. He painted a picture of a bitter, jealous daughter, a naive and manipulated husband, and a plot to steal a family fortune. Vivian stood beside him, weeping silent, perfect tears. But the narrative was no longer hers to control. As her lawyer shouted "conspiracy," Micah's article, which he had timed for this exact moment, went live. It wasn't a blog post. It was a 6,000-word piece of forensic data journalism, published simultaneously in the Gray Harbor Ledger and 2 national financial papers. His article did not contain a single anonymous source. It contained the blockchain timestamps. It contained the verified, uneditable bank ledgers. It contained the deed to the Salt Point Cottage, linked to the wire transfer from the foundation. It contained the leaked stock acquisition data from the biotech deal. It had the full analyzed audio file of Vivian's consulting call with the North Stream executive. It was not a story. It was an indictment, built from pure, irrefutable data. While Vivian's lawyer was screaming fake news, every journalist in that room was looking down at their phone, reading Micah's evidence. Her tears dried up when she realized no one was looking at her. They were looking at the facts. The battle was over. The war was just beginning. The community, which had adored Vivian, turned with a righteous, unified fury. It was not the social scandal that angered them. It was the theft from the pediatric wing. The foundation, my father's name, was mud. Naomi Keats, true to her word, filed the civil suit. It was a masterpiece of cold, legal precision. It did not ask for punitive damages. It did not ask for jail time. It simply asked for the exact documented amount, $3,245,000. It was not a quest for revenge. It was a bill. My father, in his first true act of penance, did not fight. He signed over the house. He signed over the cars. He liquidated his personal holdings and, in one single payment, made the foundation whole. He admitted his liability, not just as a failed chairman, but as a co-conspirator of silence. Sloane surprised everyone. That afternoon, from her own bedroom, not the grand staircase, she posted a new video. There was no filter, no ring light. Her face was scrubbed raw, her eyes swollen. "I am so sorry," she just said, her voice small. "I was a part of it. I took the money. It was a $50,000 handbag. And it was stolen from sick kids. I'm selling it. I'm selling all of it. All the bags, the shoes, all the PR gifts. I am giving every dollar back, and I'm going to go work. I got a job at the pediatric wing. Cleaning. I start tomorrow. The internet, a beast that loves to destroy, instead showed mercy. Her video, raw and honest, got 3 million views. The comments were not hate. They were, for the first time, respect. And me? I stayed for 1 week. I supervised the transition. I handed the new, clean and fully funded foundation over to a new, independent board, led by Dr. Thorne. I signed the documents that put my father's name, and my mother's, into a trust that I could no longer personally control, only monitor. I refused the salary. I refused the board seat. I refused the power. I was an engineer. I had found the systemic flaw. I had corrected it. The job was done. The next Monday, I was back at my desk at Blue Arc Dynamics, in my comfortable, uninspired clothes, running a simulation for a new, low-cost solar grid. My boss, who had read the papers, just looked at me. "Rowan," he said, "good to have you back. That simulation for the low-income housing project isn't going to run itself." "I know, sir," I said, and for the first time in a year, I felt my muscles unclench. I was home. That night, I drove back to Rowan House one last time. It was empty. The bank owned it. My father was in a small, rented condo across town. I was there to pick up my last box of my mother's books. He was there, on the porch, waiting for me. We stood in the cold, dark silence, the house a hollow tomb behind us. "The lawyers say," he said, his voice quiet, "that with my testimony and the evidence, she will likely lose her civil case. The state is still deciding on the criminal charges. It's complex." "It's not complex, Dad," I said. "She stole $3 million. "Yes," he said. He looked at me, his eyes clear of the fog. "I know." We stood there, and the silence built. "That night," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper, "in the hall, when you told me, I said, 'Not today.'" I waited. He looked down at his bandaged hand, then back up at me. I meant I would not let her, or you, or this rot, be covered up, not one more day. I meant, not this day. I was telling you I had seen enough." He took a step toward me. "From today, Tessa, from now on, I am choosing to stand on the side of the truth, with you, if you will have me." It was the confession I had waited 20 years to hear. Not of fraud, but of fatherhood. I looked at him, the man who had been a statue, the man who had bled, the man who had, finally, made a choice. I touched the side of my own face. The bruise was almost gone. A faint, yellow shadow, a ghost of the violence. It was a reminder, a data point from a system that was now obsolete. The power that tried to silence me, the power that data, and the law, and a small, quiet, stubborn bit of courage had finally made speak. "Okay, Dad," I said. "From today?" I picked up my box of books. He held the car door for me. As I drove away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, a solitary man standing on the porch of a dark, empty house, finally, and completely, alone with his choices. My phone pinged, a text from Micah. "It's done." I smiled. I pulled over to the side of the road, the city lights of Gray Harbor glowing in the valley below. I typed back, "No, it's just begun." I looked at the city, at the grid, at the thousands of lights, all those circuits, all that power, all that life. I turned the key, put the car in gear, and drove, not back, but forward. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on Tessa's journey. Please subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and if you want to support this channel, hit that hype button to help this story be heard by even more people.